What if you were the living embodiment of all pervasive peace? What if all sentient beings all around you increased their vibration towards harmony by merely being in your contact? What if through conscious reasoning, focused will, and intentional living, you reform yourself, thereby becoming a catalyst and sparking transformation in others? I'm Shilpa Lewis, meditation and mindfulness coach for midlife mompreneurs, and you are listening to Omnipresent Awareness, the podcast that will inspire you to use your story to serve humanity in not just healing, but thriving as souls, each fulfilling their highest purpose. And now, a conversation recorded with my partner in awareness, Tanya, from our joint podcast, Mindful Mompreneur Moments. And oh yeah, if you could, please listen to the very end of the podcast for powerful insights from our guest. Thank you. Hello, and thank you for tuning in. In this month's edition of the podcast, we cover holistic wellness. And in today's conversation, we have Julie Dargis. Julie Dargis is the author of Be Your Own Guru. She holds a PhD in integral health, which is the next step for integrative medicine because it incorporates not just conventional and alternative medicine, but all dimensions of healing, from physical to psychological and cultural to spiritual. Julie's life experience as a humanitarian, combined with her thesis work in integral health, makes her the perfect podcast guest for this month. Julie has held key leadership positions with International Rescue Committee, the American Refugee Committee, and Save the Children, where she accepted multiple subsequent assignments as a country director in Chad, New Guinea, Indonesia, Republic of Congo, Rwanda, and South Sudan, to name a few. Her overseas postings include serving as an active member of the NGO Forum Steering Committee and the NGO delegate on the Oversight Committee of the Multi-Donor Trust Fund. As a former Peace Corps volunteer in Morocco, Julie has a long history working with renowned non-governmental organizations such as World Learning, where she successfully directed country programs in Serbia, Bulgaria, and Georgia, and managed multimillion-dollar USAID and World Bank grants. And now, without further ado, here is Julie.
So our first question for you, Julie, is how did you emerge into your spiritual journey and in turn into writing this book?
Well, that's a lovely question. Thank you. Thank you both for having me. When I think of that question, emergence, it's one of my actually favorite words. And actually, when I was in high school, that was the name of our yearbook, just emergence. And I just think of always being young and always learning and always having the opportunity to grow. And for me, I think, and for the listeners, what's interesting to me is later in life, I kind of emerged into my spiritual journey. I was raised Catholic, but I always identified with being spiritual. Mm-hmm. And I worked with refugees and I worked in humanitarian relief for many, many years. And so I was under incredible stress for many years. And I would always come back and do shiatsu or do massage or get kind of body work done to help to get the kinks out. But I didn't realize how much all that body work was actually helping my mind. And I think the answer to your question is that after many, many years working overseas and being a workaholic, I just couldn't do it anymore. It was affecting my body, my mind, my spirit. And I had been working too hard for too long. So I packed up and moved to California. And that's where I found the California Institute for Human Science. And in 2015, I just began a PhD program in mind, body, spirit. And that's what led me to the healing that made me happy. And I'm living in San Francisco now. And the book then is essentially, although the book is a testament that we can all heal ourselves, and we'll talk about this, I suppose, later in the podcast, because I did research around healing. But how I came to write the book then is that I wanted to highlight all the amazing modalities that I'd learned about, because when I'd learned something new, my friends would say, oh, that's new. So the book has touches on all of these modalities that I read, and we can talk a little bit later about, the premise of the book itself.
Yeah, that's amazing. My heart just becomes full when I hear these kinds of conversations, because just the thought of being able to heal ourselves is just amazing to me. And the fact that as a woman, oftentimes we stretch ourselves so thin, that, like you say, you start feeling it in all of your body, your spirit, your mental, everything. So the fact that you were aware enough to find, some kind of healing is amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I would like to say what's interesting is, years ago, we were told as women, you can have it all. But research shows that multitasking just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And there's research that, and so to show us that. And when I finally let go of the multitasking and was more present with what I was doing and where I was at the moment, my life really, really did change. The other thing is that I'm a writer and a poet. And what I realized is I wrote my first book in 2012 or 2013 called A Pit Stop in the Paris of Africa. And it was a book about living and working overseas as a humanitarian. But what I realized while writing the book was that I was healing my relationship with my mother. We sat down, we talked about things, and that's what started my journey on narrative as a healing modality. And being a poet, that was the dissertation research that I actually did.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Absolutely. Poetry is such a beautiful way to articulate something that sometimes you're really unconscious of.
It's like music. It can be music, right?
Yeah.
And that was,
It's a form of vibration. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And
that's what I believe.
So in regards to the poetry, that was one modality. Could you describe how you've integrated other mindfulness modalities, for example, movement or breath work or mantras?
Yeah. I think my favorite modality is breath work. It's connecting the mind and the body. And I've been doing a lot of breath work. I teach academic writing at the California Institute for Human Science. And when I work with my students, I ask them about I actually give them different modalities each week before we do a writing prompt. And last week we talked about what is a modality that we all have, and breath work was it. So when we think of meditation, meditation is so amazing. And I've worked with you, Shilpa, and you've helped me as a meditation coach, and we did some amazing work together. You don't initially or immediately connect breath work with meditation. You just, we think meditation is quiet. But on my journey from Washington, D.C., moving across the country, so I wouldn't be alone, I wrote a 1-minute meditation on Facebook every day with a photograph. And what I did was I asked people to take 12 slow breaths. All you need to meditate is to take 12 breaths. That's 1 minute. And so already intuitively, I was connecting breath work with meditation. And then the more I learned about meditation, the more that I understood really about the mind and body and how important it is to just come back to the breath, to connect yourself and to go into what we'll say the parasympathetic mode, which is the healing mode. And by breathing in, you're going into sympathetic with action, and breathing out, you're going into the parasympathetic. And that's when we have long breath out, we can just feel our bodies going into a wonderful, wonderful quietness.
Yeah, just so amazing. It's just, it's the thing that we underestimate. Well, not we, I'm generalizing, but so many people underestimate the power of the breath. It is amazing.
Yeah.
And actually, I've read recently that it's like the breath is remote control to the brain and other parts, and it sets up a signal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice
one of my favorite quotes is there was Rupert Sheldrake is a philosopher and biologist who I just really adore, and he was being interviewed by someone at the institute where I teach, and he said, breathing in is like meditation, breathing out is like prayer. And then this connection with our inner lives, and then what we altruistically can send out to others, and how it's all connected. So even when I talk about being your own guru, the reason I wrote the book is that when I was studying, I saw so many of my peers looking outside themselves for help. Like, you can help me, you can heal me, you can help me. And yet all of the writing modes that I did, and anytime I did meditation or other modalities, the healing that I got the most from was, sometimes with therapists or sometimes with friends or teachers, but it really was after I'd done the work when I was on my own that I could go within and trust that I was okay. And then I would heal even more deeply. So it's this idea that we do need teachers. You were a wonderful teacher to me, Shilpa. We need friends. We need social interaction. But the healing itself, the book that I wrote, was a testament that being your own guru is a testament of the power that we have to heal ourselves. And a lot of the research that is being done at my institute is going away from drugs for mental illness, and more towards meditation, mindfulness, altruism. There's research that if you're having an issue and you get off yourself and you put your intention onto someone else who needs help, you're actually supporting them and healing yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely believe in that. That is, yeah. Thank you for that. So what does holistic well-being mean to you in relation to your business or even current life events such as the pandemic? Yeah.
Well, interestingly, when I was in the throes of the pandemic, I was essentially in a room for a year in Encinitas, California, and that's when I started working with Shilpa. And what's interesting about that is that I'd been in 28 countries before. I worked in humanitarian response. If there was a war, I was there afterwards working with refugee groups and vulnerable populations. I traveled the world 3 times over by myself. And yet when the pandemic hit, I found myself faced with myself in a room and all of this anxiety that I always thought I had, but I didn't know it until I was alone with it. And so what that means, being, if this is to your question, is, facing your fears, facing yourself, and doing it through meditation, mindfulness, and other modalities, other energy healing modalities that help you to then relax. Reading, cooking, being with friends. Some of them are so simple that you wouldn't think that they were a healing modality, but they absolutely are. Hugging your child, feeling loved. These are all things that even when I was alone, I was very close to a number of friends, but I needed to be alone for a while to release some of that anxiety, which I was able to heal some of it, but I still am quite an anxious person at times.
Thank you.
It's not until we sometimes have had that moment to face our fears that it comes to the surface. Oh, wow, I'm anxious and I didn't know. But
yeah. And I had been just a couple of years ago working in a very remote area of Ethiopia where there was ongoing measles epidemics and cholera. I worked in areas in Africa where there were Ebola outbreaks, and I managed those, or was part of a team, or was across the border supporting teams who were managing them. So my friends were like, Julie, why? What's the problem? Well, sometimes it's easy when you're running around, and this is what I said earlier and especially for the amazing moms out there. Think of moms during the pandemic. Not only were they working, they were also educating their children side by side. And so I absolutely have so much respect for that. And yet somehow we got through it. Somehow we're at the tip, or we're on the other side, or we're understanding that this is our new lifestyle. But we've all got through it. We all got through it, and we're continuing to get through it day by day. And going back to that amazing breath work and doing the things that help you feel relaxed is the best way. Even for 1 minute, 12 breaths is the best way to continue to get through it when you're in the middle of it and you don't see. It's hard to see on the other side.
That's right. Yeah.
And in regards to when you mentioned breath work and how that helps, do you have other insights on holistic wellness in terms of how to support women who are in the midst of emerging into a new phase in their lives? Perhaps it's creating a business as a mompreneur, or a shift pivot, as many women are going through during this new era of the pandemic, making changes.
Yeah. You know, the thing that just comes to mind is just trust yourselves. Just trust yourself and know that you've got the capacity and you've got the skills, because if you have the intention, you're already on your path. So trust yourself. Don't let yourself fall off the path. Why? You're on the path. You can only go forward. That's one thing I think is so important, that we don't forget that we have so much power within ourselves. The other thing that's a little bit more technical is this idea that when we talk about healing and being well, it's about mindset. And what's interesting to me is my research kind of went away from this idea of tackling illness, which is the paradigm right now that's based on drugs and based on that we have to be better, we have to be healed. I say trust yourself, because we can create a new paradigm. And for me, the paradigm is to cultivate wellness, cultivate our own wellness. That is what came out of my research. When I gave people the opportunity to consider what it meant to be well themselves, they could come up with all these ideas on what they could do to just be more relaxed and be happier. Because in their mindset, they didn't have to fix themselves. They didn't have to surmount obstacles. They were in a place of grace and presence, and that shift in mindset changed how they saw themselves. And that's, if I could say anything to the amazing mompreneurs, is that you're doing it. And so believe that you're on the right path. And the other things that I can say that could be helpful, I would hope that it's helpful for me, is that emotions are amazing. Why? Because they tell us where we are. But emotions are only information. They are so neutral. Sometimes we get pulled up in worry and concern and anger and frustration, but that just means you're off your path. It's only information. When you're feeling loved and grounded and just totally aligned with your children and your family and your significant others and your husbands and your mother, and then you know that your emotions are telling you you're doing a good job. Emotions are only information, so we don't need to fear them. We just need to listen to them.
That is so well said, and I hope it resonates for as many people as it did for me, because our emotions, I find that we in our society try to push away the bad emotions, let them in, feel them, and then decide what you're going to do with them. And I think that there's a lesson in every emotion. And like you said, when you feel right, it's because you're on the right path. So thank you. Yeah, that was great.
That's health. That's what helps.
That's health. Mm-hmm. And maybe there might be a passage maybe in your book that you can share with us that kind of ties all of this in.
I would like to. It's just a very short passage, but it's about language and it's about connection. And I would love to share this. It's from chapter 5. It's from mutually beneficial relationships. And if you will, I'll just read a very short passage. Mm-hmm. In the English language, it is widely known that nouns are words that depict people, places, and things. Adjectives describe nouns, verbs show action and existence, and adverbs describe verbs. These words make up 95% of the lexicon. The power of language, however, potentially resides elsewhere. When speaking one's truth, it is important to consider how closely that truth tracks with a larger reality outside of the confines of one's own mind. In the ancient traditions, in addition to learning devotional prayers, asanas, and other modalities to align the mind-body, there is a specialized teaching on the necessity of compassionate speech. In order to connect to others from a place of kindness, the manner and means by which we conduct our speech can have a profound effect on the message. Before we speak, we must consider our words carefully. This requires that prior to uttering a word, we first reflect upon the intent of the message. In order to convey a message that will be both well delivered and well received, anything that is said must first pass through 4 distinctive gates. The entry points of the 4 gates of speech require that you ask yourself the following questions before speaking. Number 1, are the words kind? Number 2, are the words truthful? Number 3, is it necessary they be spoken? And number 4, will the message improve upon the silence? I think I wanted to share this because when I learned of the 4 gates of speech, the thing that struck me the most was, are the words necessary? And being that I'm anxious, I'm often overzealous, and I would always blurt things out that would hurt people or would hurt me. And what I realized, and what I counsel one of my sisters is, she's so much like me, do you really need to say that now? Is it going to improve on the silence? And once I started shifting towards understanding the power of speech, that helped me both with my inner life to be more quieted, because I didn't always have to say things. I could wait until it was the right time. And it helped me with my relationships, because we all need this connections. And we want our connections to be as loving and compassionate as possible. Because sometimes we don't feel so loving and compassionate. We're human.
Yeah.
And so our language can help us to make those connections when we need to take ourselves away, so that we don't say something that we might regret later or that is not appropriate. We can simply take ourselves away because our emotions will tell us it's time to go and be alone for a moment, and then think through what you want to say, come back and say it when you're ready. And you will save yourself a whole lot of, I don't know what, but
I'm telling you,
frustration, right?
Yeah, we want to be mindful of your time, but I'm telling you, we could speak for hours with you because it's so interesting. And I love this particular tip that you've given is so relevant to the audience that is going to be listening to this, mompreneurs, because you can take this message and apply it to every single area of your life. And just for those of you who kind of think that taking a break when you speak might be awkward, it is not. If you have to take that pause to think and answer all those 4 questions, take the pause and just take the pause, because it will help you tremendously in your relationships, be it your relationships with your children, because I'm thinking already, like I'm thinking of my children and how I have to pause sometimes. And those 4 questions will come in very handy. Be it with a boss, or you're going to be your own boss, or you already are your own boss, and you have to speak to a client, or you have to take the 4 questions, apply them. You're speaking to your mother. I mean, I loved this answer. Thank you.
And one of the things I do want to say as well is I was recently traveling right before COVID, actually, and I was with a friend, and we were having a disagreement, and it was pretty heated. And I remember, I remember just saying, I don't want to say something I'm going to regret. So if you don't remember the 4 questions, I just did that. And I have to tell you, I just took a breath, and then I was able to have a conversation. And when I left Brussels, I came home and I thought, oh my God, I'm so proud of myself. I mean, I normally would have had a fight or a disagreement, or I would have left feeling terrible, but I didn't leave feeling terrible. I left feeling stronger more clear-minded, but it was amazing. After all these years and all these issues that I had had with this particular friend, I was able to speak clearly and from the heart, and it was amazing. It was just amazing. So if you don't remember the 4 questions, at least you can say, I don't want to say something that I will regret, because then my emotions are going to, my emotions will tell me I said the wrong thing. And I don't want to do that, because I want to go to bed and sleep well. I don't want to sleep with my arguments. I don't want to sleep with the people that I'm not happy with. I want to sleep in peace.
That's right. Release that negative energy. Yeah.
The 4 tips you provided ties really well with a quote that I recall. Basically, that words can be wall or it could be a window, and nonviolent communication requires an art that is tied back to the spirituality of the very modalities that we try to practice. That it's a practice, just like meditation. We are all a work in progress, but those words can be an energetic vibration you're sending out. And it sounds like really tapped into tips that will help people that are on this mindfulness path.
Yeah, I think it's funny how we just naturally came to this. I had no intention of coming here, but now I'm realizing, because this is kind of new and interesting to think about, language matters. Language is vibration. If poetry, from my own research, was able to bring us into a sympathetic system by, first I had participants listen to the words, and then we had a moment, and then I had a second reading where I said, only listen to the poetry as if it were music. And that's when they had the sympathetic, their bodies went into sympathetic, parasympathetic healing mode. And so language matters, and what we say and how we say it, the tone we say it, it matters. So, that's just, I think if we can take anything away from this podcast, it's just to be aware that we make these choices and we can choose to be angry. Sometimes it's nice to get it out that way, but it will have an effect, and it may not have the effect that you truly want, because in the end, we just want to be connected and we just want to be loved.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you so much for this. It was such a pleasure to have you. I hope that we would be able to collaborate some more, because this energy that we have is just
it's
beautiful.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for thinking of me. I really enjoyed speaking with you all, and I wish all your listeners just great health and happiness. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
You are just so appreciated.
Thanks again for tuning in. Check out the links in the description, and please subscribe, follow, and share. And continue to be omnipresent.